Nobody's everybody in this movie, nobody is half-assing it. Everyone is very, like, present.
Locked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Present, but invisible.
Whoa!
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid. See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for spooks and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone. Just a couple of gals talking about horror movies. Thanks for joining us. That's us. That's me. Do you remember Ask Ashley on all that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
From Amanda Bynes. Fantastic. Fantastic. So today is a fun day because we are talking about a movie that we've all seen before. It's a wonderful movie, and it's such a great movie for this podcast to really dig into all the mental health of it all. We're talking about the 2020 science fiction horror film, The Invisible Man. And guys, we've been on a Lee Whannell streak because he directed this film. And it is based off of the H.G. Wells novel of the same name, which I don't think I realized it was a novel, but I did know this is a remake of the 1933 film of the same name. So this stars our one and only Elizabeth Moss, Aldous Hodge, Storm Reid, Harriet Dyer, Michael Dorman, and Oliver Jackson Cohen. So obviously heavy spoilers for The Invisible Man. All things invisible and unseen and seen things.
I'm invisible. You can't see me.
Oh my God, Jamie, where did you go?
What happened? Oh my God.
What happened?
Just kidding. It was mirrors reflecting you back to yourself, but now I'm here.
Well, to all of our podcast listeners, we are invisible podcasts.
Well,
Yeah, you can't
true.
see us.
You can only hear our voice. We are the John Cenas of the podcasting. You can't see us. Great. So, Jamie, hit us with those trigger warnings.
Oh boy. This
Oh,
whole
boy.
movie is about intimate partner violence. So very heavy trigger warnings for like all things domestic violence. There are definitely some insides on the outside, with stabbing and shooting and things like that. There is, references to like anti-anxiety medication, birth control, pregnancy, attempted suicide, slicing, stabbing, spooky. There's like physical abuse that happens. All things. Did I miss anything?
It's a doozy.
That was a lot. It really is a doozy.
Yeah, I don't think you missed anything. But if you are not about partner abuse, like this is not.
This is very much.
Yeah, so we'll get into all of that because even though it is wild and crazy kids out there, the shots are freaking amazing how they do all this stuff. So really excited to hear y'all's opinions on all those things. But before that, producer Brian, please give us some words.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Producer Brian here. If you are listening to us on the podcast, hello, but we are also on YouTube. You can find all of our episodes and our faces on YouTube, or if we're invisible, you'll just see blank spaces. But we're also doing some more fun stuff on YouTube. It's not just these episodes. We have fun shorts and clips from this episode. We also have countdowns and rankings and things like that that we have on there. So you can check out all of that from Talking Horror. That's really fun. And then that's all that I was gonna say there. Also, yeah, I don't know what else. I don't know.
What else? What else?
What else?
Yeah, follow us on YouTube, and then we're on all the social medias, like we said, Talk Horror Pod. TikTok, we are past 15K. That's very exciting.
Fantastic.
And then as you all know, I'm obsessed with Letterboxd, so you can follow me at BP527, and I'll also follow Jamie on there. All those links are in our description, so if you want to follow us anywhere, it's all down there. You should follow us there. It's super fun. Back to you, Nikisha.
All right, guys. Well, should we get into it, or have you had something that you've watched this week that you'd like to share?
What have you watched this week? Let me check my Letterboxd. Of course.
Speaking of,
Well, we did see we saw the Mission Impossible movie, and I thought of it because you mentioned Letterboxd, because of the cool thing that happens when you log that movie on Letterboxd.
Yeah, well, I also found out, I think it's if you log any Mission Impossible movie.
Oh, really?
If you review any Mission Impossible movie and hit save on your review, it's your first review for the first time, and hit save. There's this marketing integration that happens with it that is, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it's really cool. I'll tell you after. It's really, really cool. It's very interactive and very cool.
like stuff happening on your screen and
exactly.
popping up
Yeah.
everywhere. That's
You like stuff on your
that.
screen.
It's cool. If you like stuff on your screen, boy, oh boy, have I got a marketing integration for you.
Love that.
That was cool. And then we watched all of season 6 of Black Mirror.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still going through it, even though there's only like 5 episodes, but it's been a little hard to watch. But
Interesting. Yeah. It's weird. This season, we'll probably get into it in the future at some point. But season 5, I would say half of them, like 2.5 of the episodes, feel like a black. No, I think they're only 5.
No, you said season 5.
Oh, sorry.
Season 6, yeah. Okay.
Season 6, the 5 episodes, I would say 2.5 of them don't feel like Black Mirror. They just feel like random, like horror, like segments, as opposed to like specifically feeling like a Black Mirror brand.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm 2.5 in. So we'll see. Also, sometimes I look at it and one episode is like an hour and a half, and I'm like, I don't have the capacity for that.
Yeah, totally. But we'll get to that. Nikisha, did you watch anything else?
No, I haven't watched anything else. I'm still living off of my Beyoncé high, so
Oh, sure.
I'm just following her on TikTok, her other shows, and like seeing what her other different outfits are, and if she changed her set list or anything like that. So
Cool.
that's all.
I think she was just in Philly.
She was, yeah. That was her first like America stop. So everybody and their mama was there. It looked insane. So I'm happy I was not at that one. The one in Toronto was just fine. So good things. Well, we got to get into Invisible Man, and
Yes.
we need a plot summary. I think it is my turn.
I think you're right.
What's the plot?
It's been a couple of days since I have watched this, so this is going to be real fun for you guys. Just letting you know.
I'm excited.
I'm going to be remembering as I talk about it.
Yeah, but I think this one, there are some very specific plot points you need to hit, and everything is just like everything else is gaslighting.
That's still too much pressure, Brian.
I know. I'm so sorry. All right. Well, I'm gonna set up the timer.
Wait. Okay. First off, sorry already, because I just want to call her Elizabeth Moss, but her name is Cecilia.
Yes, her name is
Call
Cecilia.
her Elizabeth Moss.
Okay.
That's
You
what
call
I
Elizabeth
do.
Moss. That's fine. You call
All right.
Elizabeth Moss, the guy from Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Great.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
And
Cop-
Storm Reid.
Cop friend and Storm Reid. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Storm Reid.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. All right. Let's get you started. 2 minutes and go.
We open up with Cecilia, Elizabeth Moss' character. She is trying to escape her what we think is abusive husband, which is why she's trying to escape so quietly in the middle of the night in their house that's far away over a cliff somewhere. She ends up being able to get out and get into her sister's car, but not with her husband finding her and knocking on the car door, but then eventually they escape. So she escapes to one of her good friend's house, who is a cop and has a daughter. And her sister comes over to the house. Elizabeth Moss, eventually tells them like what's going on. She's been abused. She's trying to get away. It's hard for her to even get out of the house because she's still hiding. Eventually, her sister comes over and says, "Hey, look, he's dead. You don't have to hide anymore." And she's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to start living my life." They have to go to a lawyer, which happens to be her dead husband's brother, who is going to give her money because her husband was rich. And so she gets money. Okay, great. And so now she's in the house. She feels like she's comfortable, but now spooky dooky things are happening. She feels like she's being followed. There's a fire that happens in the kitchen that was out of nowhere. Eventually, she is trying to seek out if he's still like following her. She feels like he's alive. She goes back to the house, finds that there is a suit, an invisible suit, and she's like, "He's still around. You guys believe me." And then when she tries to tell her sister at a restaurant, her sister gets killed. It wasn't her. It was the guy. And so then she gets into a mental asylum. Eventually, she tries to escape, but only to go back to the house.
20 seconds.
And apparently, he faked his death. He was alive. They meet up again, but then she ends up killing him with the invisible suit and lives happily ever after and keeps the suit. That's it.
7 seconds left. Anything else you want to add?
Oh, gosh. Nope, I can't think of anything. We'll talk about it in Likes and Gripes.
Okay, excellent. All right. Fantastic.
That's the plot.
So something I do want to point out that I think is important to the plot is that they were not married. It was boyfriend, so that she wasn't entitled to anything. I think they were just she was just his girlfriend.
I don't think that's true.
I thought that in the... I don't know how the lawyer and stuff was talking about. It seemed like they were married.
Yeah,
because she wouldn't have.
Well, maybe they
wouldn't
just
have legally gotten
anything. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but he put it in her will. He put it in his will to give it to her. Nothing was like earned. Because I think the whole time it just says relationship and stuff like that. I don't know if they were actually married.
Interesting.
I think that's all a part of it. That like she wasn't tied down like legally to him, but she still couldn't like escape it.
Yeah, and everything was in his will to just give to her.
Yes, with the caveat that she could not get into legal trouble.
Right. Okay, I feel that. That's even crazier. But we'll get into that mindset. So let's start it off with our first segment of Likes and Gripes.
And now our Likes and Gripes.
Jamie, do you want to go first?
Sure. This movie. This movie, I remember seeing this. This was like, I think the last movie that Brian and I saw before the pandemic.
Yeah.
In theaters. And I distinctly remember watching this film and just feeling so deeply uncomfortable after seeing it. And like we went, I think, to a bar after to like process it. And I was just like, I could not handle this movie in theaters, like sitting there. I just felt so vulnerable and like terrible. And then rewatching it, I was absolutely dreading it. I was like, I don't ever need to see this film again. It was sufficiently like seared into my brain.
Yes.
And here I am, and the first thing I wrote is, I am deeply uncomfortable.
Yes.
I felt the same
just
way.
Very effective. It's very effective. I will also say that like I myself have never been in a relationship with intimate partner violence. However, I've done like a significant amount of work with survivors of intimate partner violence. And this movie is like very, I was about to say grounded in reality with the caveat of like, I don't think this suit exists. So I can't speak on optics, But I can speak on IPV, or intimate partner violence. I use that acronym often. That like this is Elizabeth Moss plays this so realistically, which is why it's just like, if anybody, I mean, I also like wouldn't want to recommend this to anybody who is a survivor of IPV or like experiencing it, because it feels so real. But it does, if you are curious about like what that looks like this is what it looks like. Just like between the isolation from her support system, like both her partner or ex-partner, you know, intentionally like keeping her from all of the people in her life, like seemingly like she just seemed like she was pretty disconnected from her sister and from her cop friend. But then like as she's going through everything, the email that her sister gets that was, you know, not written by her, but it's just like another way for her to be disconnected from the people who like love her and care about her, which is deeply upsetting. And what else do I have? I wrote down all these notes. Oh, there was a line like, if you're too stupid to know the good guys and too weak to leave the bad ones. That line really stood out to me. From her
sister?
Yeah. Because again, speaking from like the work that I've done, IPV affects everyone. Like there's no like specific target in terms of like socioeconomic status, education, like race, culture, like it truly affects everybody. And something that I talk about all the time with folks, because it still does come up in the work that I do, is it's not that you are a bad judge of character. I think that like that's something that comes up a lot for folks who find themselves in situations in relationships that like there's potentially harm involved. And like, you know, people then take that on to feel like, oh, I'm like, I did something wrong, I should have known better. But like ultimately, if somebody is treating you poorly in the first meeting that you have with them, like you're not going to continue to engage with that person because they've shown you who they are at the start. But the problem with this, it's way more insidious than that. And you're not getting that. I know I'm like jumping into like brains right now, but like it's just so important because like it's part of why this is so real. It's just like it's so much more difficult than just like knowing whether or not someone's good or bad, because you're not seeing that part of those people until like the relationship is forming, until like you get closer with them. And then it's a lot more challenging to kind of like rectify with more of them revealing themselves, because there's still the hope that you'll get the better version of them because you've gotten it. And like that's so it just all like feeds into like why this is one of the most realistic representations, I feel like. So it's not just about like her being dumb or smart. Like she's obviously incredibly smart, but that's not what the issue is.
And just to piggyback off of that, just because one of my notes was just saying how crazy it is that you can't really know a person for sure until it's too late and your life is already kind of like in control and ruined. And like you said, Jamie, it's a really great point that you say that it doesn't have to do with like race or economic class. Like it really is about the person and how they manipulate people, and you just don't really know that you're being manipulated in that way. Like this was so intricate and this was so planned out that you just look up one day, and even when Elizabeth Moss is explaining it to her sister in the scene of like, how did this even start? And she was like, well, it was little things. Like he would tell me what to eat and what to wear, and then eventually he would tell me like who I could talk to and where I could go and what to think. And he would like be reading her mind and say like, you know, I know what you're thinking about and you can never escape me. Like how scary is that feeling to just know that you could be looking at all of the other good things and not think about all of these small little things, but those small things add up so quickly.
And the added layer of the fact that he was like a genius in his field, like
Yes.
the PR and everything surrounding him as like this like forward thinking type of person probably also makes you feel like helpless, because the world would probably be against you as well, because they see his value in society.
Yeah. Oh, he's so successful, and
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Right.
As a side note, like the idea of most CEOs terrifies me because of stuff like this. Like,
Yeah.
you know, again, being as vague as possible, like. You have to imagine that there's some like very scary things going on for people to like get to these particular places.
Sure.
And like it's just something that I think about way too often. But anyway, back to the film. Another line that kind of speaks to her experience, she says, like, he makes me feel like I'm the crazy one, which is gaslighting.
Yes.
This is like gaslighting like 2.0. If Rosemary's Baby is gaslighting version 1, The Invisible Man is gaslighting like times 100.
Yeah.
So it's not just like her feeling, like her questioning her sanity, but also the things that he's doing around her, because nobody else can see him and like are not on the same page as her in terms of believing that like he somehow turned himself invisible. Like everybody else is also doubting her and having a harder time believing her, which is only feeding into like her, you know, feeling like she's being gaslit, or just again in this reality of an invisible Sooth existing, like just having a harder time getting people to buy into her beliefs. So I also wrote, thank God the dog is safe. That was really stressing me out.
Yes.
No, but like
Oh my
truly
gosh.
animals and also like babies in these relationship dynamics like cause significant escalation. Like pregnancy
Oh my
is
God.
a huge risk factor like for IPV. So I was like, the second they even introduced a dog, I was like, I can't handle this.
Nope.
So all of that really messes me up. We're gonna obviously talk about that restaurant scene, but
Yes.
the thing that I want to say before that like also makes me so mad, but it's so good, is there's like some lightheartedness at the restaurant. There's like a comedic moment
with the
restaurant
waiter.
with the waiter coming over and over again being annoying, that like brings you this moment of levity. This movie is intense. I like from the jump, I my heart is like beating out of my ass, and I am like freaking out because I don't know, you know, what's gonna happen. And then you finally get this, like, the briefest of moments of, like, oh, cool, like, they're letting me relax, thank God. And then the unthinkable happens. I feel like this is similar to, like, I won't say what it is, but if you have seen Hereditary, then you know. It's, like, the unwatchable scene. You can't, I was like, I really don't want to see this part again.
Yep.
But, like, complete shock seeing this the first time.
Yes.
I was so mad and upset because, again, it's just like, not only are you like, you know, losing people on your side, but like now you've literally lost your biggest ally, both in like family, but also in like in the legal sense, because like I guess everybody's a lawyer in this movie unless you're in optics,
or a police officer. So
yeah. So, but like then she loses her sister, who also happens to be a lawyer, who's like her advocate. So it's just like the isolation is at an all-time high. But that scene, it's so good. But like I also hate it deeply. I love this movie's so good. But like, please don't make me watch it again. My only like sort of gripe is when it's revealed that Adrian actually was alive. It surprises me that more people, including the cop friend, like aren't more skeptical that he actually somehow is behind all of this, because the whole thing is like, no, he's dead. There's no way that like they confirmed with certainty that he's dead, but now he's alive. Okay, that brings up way more skepticism that nobody else seems to have. It's like, that should have been the point where people are scrutinizing, like, wait a minute, like, that was really believable that you supposedly were dead, but now you're alive. Like, nobody seems to care. They're just like, oh, yeah, the brother totally did it.
It's also not that big of a leap. If in reality you've introduced this invisible suit, it's not a leap to think that, like, this person was controlling his brother. And especially as a detective, there's that moment when they go back to Tom, the brother, the second time, where she kind of like says everything that's bothering her and what's happening, and that Tom's in on it. And James, the cop, is there. And then Tom says that line where it's like, listen, I hate my brother too. He controls me. He does this. I'm glad he's gone. Like, you know, half of that is real. Half of that is a tactic to get everybody on his side as well. But it comes, I'm assuming, I'm making the inference that comes from a real place for the character. And James, as a detective, is there. So he should be taking all of this in. And like, that's on my gripe list too. That he says at the end where she's like, it's still Adrian, he says like, let's just get you out of trouble. Like, that scene is weird because he's almost playing it two ways. It's almost like two edits. It's one edit of two ways he's playing the scene. In the first half of that scene, he's very staunchly like, I don't, like, Adrian didn't do this, like, you're still on this, like, but then the other half of the scene is like, I kind of believe you, but like, you just have to let it go because like, you have to still get out of trouble. So I don't know if that's like an editing thing. I don't know if Aldous Hodge, who I love, by the way, I think he's a great actor, like, played it two different ways and they edited those two different versions together. But I completely agree with Jamie that like, I needed more clarity from that scene. And if the clarity is that he didn't believe her still, I don't know if that's believable, because in the end of the movie, he's like, he kind of lets her go because he kind of knows what happened in the room, and like, he's kind of skeptical and he's ethically struggling with like, if they did the right thing or not, even though he didn't know, and she kind of kept him in the dark, even though he's there like helping her with that stuff. But that doesn't fully connect to the scene beforehand, and I think that's what I had on my list too, Jamie.
Especially because they're always like, we saw the pictures of this person being dead and then they're not dead, and then it's just like, why wouldn't you just say, okay, let me just take one step back and think there is another suit, like he could still be doing all of these things like in conjunction. But sorry, keep going, Jamie.
Yeah, no, that's like pretty much it. I will say the only other scene, I have mixed feelings on the hospital fight scene. Because like, on one hand, I think that when she's
hallway?
in the hospital, in the hallway, and then all of the security starts coming, and his suit's like malfunctioning, so sometimes you see him and sometimes you don't. And I guess, like, again, I'm trying really hard to put myself in the situation of like, if there was a kind of invisible person trying to fight me, how would I handle this situation? Which is really hard to think about. But like, he almost seemed like superhuman strengthy in that moment. Sure. And again, it's hard to be like, well, they couldn't see him, so like, he kind of could have been running circles around them, which he was, I guess, technically. But like, at some point, it kind of just, it felt like all of them lost all instincts, even when they could see him, and like, nobody was responding in a way that felt totally accurate. So I have like mixed thoughts on his like super powerful, like, the hallway fight.
Yeah, and that hallway fight, I could have used one or two more reaction shots from the cops being like, what's happening here? Like confusion, to believe that like, they would be confused by that, and that's why they're being like taken out fully. Because a couple of the cops felt like they got a handle on it and like, weren't surprised that this was happening. So like, I definitely would have liked more of a perspective from those cops. Because like, also, to go along with that, if we're talking about that specific hallway scene, like, on what planet are they not pulling the camera from that scene and then seeing somebody like half pop up and half not pop up? Like that to me is like, that should have been like step one to be like, oh, even though she escaped and like, things happened pretty quickly after that. And so like, maybe they don't have enough time or whatever, like, that was definitely something that popped into my head.
Yeah. I also have a quote where a cop says, "I know how this goes." I didn't specify which cop it was, so I can't remember. But my guess, and then I wrote wrong in all caps, so I'm trying to decipher what my note means. But what I'm assuming is like some kind of judgment from a cop on somebody who's like explaining as a survivor of intimate partner violence, and like I have a lot of strong feelings about that, so that probably triggered me, which is why I wrote that down. But again, that's also like realistic, so you know, can't be mad, but can be mad that that's our reality.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's that. Those are my feelings.
Fantastic. I'll piggyback off of that because I would like to bring up how this movie is shot. I agree with everything that Jamie said as far as Elizabeth Moss's performance and movies like this that make me uncomfortable. I also watched this movie right before the pandemic. It was like my second to last movie I watched before the shutdown happened. And
you saw this in theaters?
Yeah, I saw it in theaters. Yes. And I just remember how intensely I felt the entire time. So I just want to talk about those moments and specifically how some things were shot that just really added to the tension building in this, which I think is glorious and probably one of Leigh Whannell's like best directing things. I love the title card off the top, just with the water coming and falling and you just seeing the outline of the title of the movie. I think that was beautiful. Some of the jump scares that got me because everything was so silent was when she kicked that dog bowl.
Oh my God.
Also because you can see the dog bowl and she can't. So like it's such a, that whole opening sequence, Nikisha, you're absolutely right, is just like so good. That title card is like sets, not only is like you get the storm and the water, but then you get like the reveal of all of that stuff, so it's getting you like into that invisibility, like it's just like an absolute like and the camera placement in that, oh man, so good.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I just one of my notes is the tension in this opening scene is chef's kiss. Like, I no notes at all in how everything was directed, acted, filmed, like everything. It was great. I also loved when she first steps out, when she's at her friend's house, the cop's house, and she's stepping out to the mailbox. And the minute that she puts her foot down, the sound is muddled. Oh, incredible. It just like gave me chills, like of the, okay, we're in her world. And right now, like how she's feeling is like, I'm just trying to get to this one thing, but there's so many other things around me that I can't even take in what's happening outside. Yeah. And so I love the decision that they muddled the sound from the outside because we're really like living in her moment. Another thing that it'll always be hard for me to watch the sister death. Like even when I knew it was coming up, it was just like, this is yes.
This might be a hot take. But I think that scene in the restaurant is one of the great horror scenes of the past couple of years.
Yes.
I think it's underrated. I don't think we talk about that scene enough. I think the movie, like Jamie said, the movie up until that point sets it up, and then the waiter saying, here we do things differently, and like the humor and undercutting like restaurant humor in there at that moment, juxtaposed to how serious the conversation they're about to have is. Yeah. And then you get that moment is truly one of the most underrated like horror sequences. Not only the visuals, but the way it makes you feel is just like out of this world. And I agree with Jamie from before, like definitely on the level of telephone pole Hereditary in a different way.
Yeah.
And that was a hot take.
Absolutely. Because you're like seeing the sister see the floating knife, and then it's all downhill from there. And how Elizabeth reacts to it, on top of it just like in her hand, just genius. I also love that there's a few shots that they do in this where they have a full wide shot, right? But something is happening either on like the far right side or the far left side, but it's a full shot of everything. And you're just seeing what's happening like on the sides. I think that happens when she's like trying on clothes or something, and there's something like happening on the side, but she's over on one side of the screen. One of the bigger scenes is when she's in the kitchen and she's cooking breakfast for the morning, and so they have the whole shot of the kitchen, but she's just off to the side on the stove, and then walks out of the frame, and so we just see like the fire happening, and for some reason that just made me so happy. I love those kinds of shots.
Yeah, me too. And I think the exciting thing for me in that is like you are projecting, knowing that there's an invisible person in this movie. You are projecting. They give you the space to fill in your own blank.
Yes.
And that puts you in her position, which makes you even more uneasy. And I think this movie does that. I am in total agreement with you, Nikisha. The movie not only does that well, but I think expertly does it, which is why I think this is so deeply effective. And also one of my likes, just to piggyback off of what you said about this, is this movie never makes you think A, that she's crazy, or B, wrong. There is maybe a 2-minute segment where you're figuring it out with her, even though because you know what this movie is about, if like this is real or not. But then immediately they have the breath behind her outside, so you know someone's there.
Next thing. Yes.
So the whole time in this movie, you're filling in the blank, knowing that she is right. This movie never. I feel like a lot of these movies have that segment where like, I don't know, is she right or is she wrong? And it's like, no, she's right. This is called The Invisible Man. We don't need to waste the audience's time with a half hour of like,
is he invisible?
You're not. Like, we know, like,
or insult the intelligence of the audience.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah, yes. Totally.
Yeah. And that's great. Also to your point too of the shots, because it's so I love that you said that, because it really is like filling in the blanks. You have this big wide shot and you're like, where is he?
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out like where's he gonna hit to next. And they also do a good job when they kind of zoom over to an empty space and stop there.
Yes.
And then somebody walks into the frame. Because then you're just like, oh, is the camera putting you where he is, but we just don't know, and the actor is just walking into the danger. Like what? It's great. Like I could
apparently that there were a lot of the scenes that like you think she's filming by herself. He actually is there, like in the green suit, because she like wanted him present as like part of her. Yeah, I read
amazing.
that when I was like, she is doing a really incredible job, and like probably is alone for a lot of this, but like for some of those, it was helpful for her to like have the figure physically present as like, you know, to add to that anxiety like feeling, and like reaction that she's having.
Oh, that's good to know. I think that really comes through, like in terms of like how, man, her performance is like top notch in this movie.
It really,
Nobody's everybody in this movie, nobody is half-assing it. Everyone is very like present.
Locked in.
Yeah.
Present but invisible.
Fantastic. 2 more things, and then I'm done, because I don't have any gripes with this movie. Even though your point of the cop at the end not believing about Adrian like did make me feel a little bit icky, I still was in it to win it like the whole time.
Yeah.
So the last thing that I'll say, I just lost my spot of what I was going to say. It was about the breath, because I love that in that scene, sometimes if you get like a jump scare, it'll be accompanied by a musical cue, right? Or a sound effect that happens. And I just love that they let it exist as it was, of just a breath happening in silence. Like, this is absolutely effective. It doesn't need to be like a whole, we see the breath, there's somebody there.
Bum,
like,
bum,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we don't need it. We know what's happening. You've already built up such great tension. Like, just let it. I love that they just let it exist as it was. Here is the breath. The audience is obviously seeing it, and she's just going back into her house that's quiet, and everything is still quiet, because I think that adds so much more like we've all said, tension to the piece, as opposed to really trying to like force the hand of a jump scare. Yeah. Last thing. I think that the females are making really great decisions in this movie. To me, how they operate was believable, even in such a crazy circumstance. Even Storm Reid just like fucking macing the invisible person. I was like, well, yeah, you don't see anybody, but you're like, this is what I have as a means to defend myself. Man. Something is happening, and it ended up working, like to where he for a second was like, you know, couldn't move and she could kind of like escape or, you know, get away. So yeah, that's my last thought. It's just that I think that the women are making really good decisions, despite how crazy the circumstances are. Like I not for one second was like, maybe you shouldn't have done that, or maybe you should have like went to this person instead of this. It's like, no, how everything is set up, I dig it. So
can we talk about Storm Reid for just a moment? She is silently becoming one of my favorite casting additions to horror movies. I like her in general, like just as an actress, but like I feel like she's slowly becoming not necessarily a scream queen per se, but maybe a horror queen, because like, you know, we have, you know, a side character in this, Invisible Man, then you have her in Missing, and then she's going to be in The Nun too. So I'm and looking...
she was in The Last of Us, right?
Oh yeah, that's
yes.
So I'm very excited for kind of how she lends her talents to this genre, because I think she's an absolutely wonderful actress.
She also was in that Don't Let Go movie, which I think was like kind of billed as a horror. It's like a science fiction horror where I think in the trailer it's like it's something taking place in like a different timeline. Something. It's like a time-based thing. But I think that also counts. But yeah, I think she's great. I have loved her since Euphoria. She's excellent in Euphoria. So I'm really excited to see her in more stuff.
I didn't see Wrinkle in Time, and apparently I'm looking at her credit. She was in 12 Years a Slave, which is my assumption she played like a young version of somebody or something.
Because that was a while back.
Yeah, 2013.
2013. Yeah.
Wow.
But
she's only 20 now. Oh, so she was 10, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure she played Anyway, I just wanted to shout her out. I just have
go ahead. Do your likes and gripes, Brian.
I couldn't agree with both of you more about everything. This movie made me so deeply uncomfortable, and I actually think that it was equally uncomfortable the second time as it was the first time. The opening sequence is an all-timer, as Nikisha mentioned. I think that the achievement of this movie for me is that it treats me like an adult the whole time.
Yeah.
I think that's really great. Her performance is great. Some things I love, the bandage imagery in the hospital, to kind of like as a throwback to the original Invisible Man, where like he bandages himself. I thought the special effects in this were excellent. I never questioned. Sometimes in a very high concept movie like this, if the special effects don't work, then I'm just like, this is silly, or like I can't buy into it. Never once did my brain think to itself like, oh, I don't believe this. I was very much in it, and the special effects helped that. The waiters, that scene is just incredible. The whole restaurant scene. I won't get into it more. Script wise, inserting the pregnancy thing at her lowest moment was like, this movie is incredible because it uses mundane things, if you will, to build the tension. He steals her portfolio. Like, remove the killing the sister part out of it. He messes with her portfolio and her ability to find a job for herself and be independent. I
don't know if I like the word like mundane things. I think maybe it's just like less like violent.
Yes,
things,
that's what I meant. For a horror movie.
Like,
yes.
Messing with her.
Yeah. Sorry. Totally right. Not mundane in the sense that like they are trivial or don't matter. They do. They're just not like pure violence, like from like what we'd expect from a horror movie.
It's still like psychological abuse, and like emotional abuse, like messing with her in those ways, even if he's not like physically violently attacking her in those moments.
Yes.
We also do get that later on multiple times, but like in the beginning that's why I say it's insidious, because it's like the stuff that maybe you're not always seeing or paying as much attention to when it's not the explicit violence.
Yeah, and it's the building of that, like she talks about in how the relationship got so toxic. It's happening again, like with the portfolio, like with the email to her sister, like with the finding out that he messed with her birth control. Like all of that stuff, while not like outwardly violent, is obviously very nefarious, insidious, like all of those words. And to me, those were more effective, those were more hurtful, and made me feel more helpless for her and as an audience member than any of the violence did. I thought that I have a couple of questions for you plot wise after I kind of complete this, but I love at the end in his house when she's going to have dinner with him, she knows where all the cameras are because she had been studying them for weeks trying to escape. So she knows where every single camera is in that house, and I appreciated that. The line, "I need you to do this for me," definitely got me. And I like that she was leaving. I love the bookends of this movie. They both begin and end with her leaving his house under very different circumstances. And I think it tracks her journey nicely. Even though I don't think she had a ton of character development in this in some ways, because she was always right. It was just a matter of people believing her and then finding peace because like he can no longer harm her. So I loved that. Some gripes. There's no way that Tom would just have the crime scene body photos like on his desk, the lawyer. Okay. Hear me out. I don't think the sister and her, I don't think they conveyed a strained enough relationship for the email to be believable. For them not to have a conversation about it. I don't think that they were strained enough. There was some mean stuff in there. So it did not stop me from enjoying the movie. I think I'm overly nitpicking this movie because I like it so much. But that's something they tried to set it up. I don't think it was strong enough. Because the only time she picked her up. Great. You're already setting that they have a relationship there. And then it's like, why haven't you? And then all of a sudden, a couple weeks later, like, you haven't messaged me at all. Like when she rushes into the house and stuff like that. I don't know. I could have used something a little bit cleaner there. But like, again, that human relationships aren't clean. Very
true.
I mean, record everything. If I think that he's chasing me, I would have like a body cam on me at that point. You know what I mean? Like something like that. I don't believe that James would have been in her interrogation. Just as a cop thing, like the friend, I don't think would have actually been in that room interrogating her. One of my gripes is the shot and when he shoots the person in the knee. Not because it's bad, it's because it makes me feel yucky. I don't believe that if he hired an interior designer for his house, that the feng shui would have their head to the water in the bed. Like the head of the bed would not be facing the water because my understanding of feng shui, some of it is that heads by windows, it sucks your energy out of the room. So that just seems I mean, maybe that's symbolic or whatever, but that was something I noticed. And then my last gripe for this movie, The Invisible Man from 2020, is maybe this is controversial, but I don't like square wine glasses. I think that square wine glasses like don't do it for me. I think it's a weird way to swirl. Maybe it matched the aesthetic, and maybe they're showing that he's a douchey guy, so he has these square wine glasses. For all I know, she picked them out. I don't know. Maybe the interior designer I previously mentioned, whose feng shui was wrong because their head should not be outside facing the their head in the bed should not be facing the window. So that's just, I don't know.
You know what that is, Brian?
What is that?
Parlor talk.
That's parlor talk. Yeah.
Come, sit, have a drink. It's parlor talk.
That's a parlor talk.
That's parlor talk.
Yeah. Do your parlor? What wine glasses do you have in your parlor?
Oh,
Right.
I like rounded wine glasses, and that's just
Maybe
a me
it's something
thing.
to do. like some wines in a square, like open them up differently. I don't know.
I don't
when you
know.
swirl it.
I just don't aesthetically enjoy them. I'm more of a rounded wine person or something.
You're more of a traditionalist.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, that's just that's where I stand with that. I mean, but then again, it made me hate him more. So like, we're on the same.
There you go.
So maybe it's not a gripe at all. I don't know.
This pretentious square glass.
Oh yeah,
Douchebag.
totally.
Douchebag.
Maybe I'm the snob. I don't know.
I'm dead.
But I do have some questions for you before we move into our next segment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
In terms of a choice that she made, it seems outrageous or a bad move for her to go to Tom, the brother, the lawyer, and like say what she's thinking. Like that whole sequence where she's like, he's still alive, he's invisible. Like I feel like Tom is the wrong person to go to. But then again, like she already went to her cop friend. She went to her cop friend talking about it, but he didn't know what she was going to do when they walked into that room.
Right.
So like, I guess, did you think that was a good move outside of like plot?
I think that she was just trying to play on the fact that she probably knows that the brother's also been manipulated and just try to get him on her side with the idea of like, you know your brother, like I know your brother, he does this to people, like, and he does it to you, so like we're both kind of victims in this, like let's work together, like figure it the fuck out. I can understand why she would go to him for that reason, just to kind of say like, I know how you feel about him, like this is what's happening, like look into this, or at least give me some information of if this could be even remotely possible. That's how I feel.
Jamie?
Yeah, I agree.
My next question is, when did it all change for Adrian? Meaning, like, was this his plan the whole time, and then once she escaped, like, he had to all of a sudden... Was he always going to throw his brother under the bus? It was a matter of when. Did he always plan on killing her sister? Or, like, did his plan have to change on the fly because she was a lot more... I don't know, independent, better, like more like I don't know what word I'm looking for, but she was more of a tough adversary than he thought she was going to be.
Yeah.
Like at what point do you think like his plan changed? And I just wanted to open that up. It's more of an open-ended question than it is like a specific question.
Yeah, because I thought about this in the moment that it's revealed that she's pregnant. I feel like his plan changes because now it's less about fully destroying her and it's more about like, oh, this is the thing that can get us back together. And like we can just, resume as the like full family now that we're about to be. And I think that's how he like decides to put pressure on her, because before it's like no holds bars and he's gonna like not only ruin her life but like potentially kill her. And then knowing that
he's throwing her
is
around.
carrying, then finding out that she's like carrying a child, I think that changes for him. But yeah, so that's something that I have thought about before.
Sure,
I agree. That makes the most sense.
Yeah, but his in the end, regardless if she was pregnant or not, his plan the whole entire time was to throw his brother under the bus so that he can come back to life, regardless of what he did with her.
I guess.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
And why would he stay away after she's like, done? Yeah.
Yeah.
My last question is James, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is James of a friend? I feel like that's a very complex, layered question, because like he does take her in, he does share things with her, he doesn't believe her a lot, but also like in the moment, if you thought that she had hit your daughter, like that's a different scenario. And then he believes her, and then he kind of like is trying to manage expectations at the end. So I like where do you fall on his kind of? I think it's an excellent performance, but where do you fall on the character?
That's hard, because when you put him as a police officer, that is such a different mindset that makes me believe his way of thinking in kind of not believing her sometimes, or because his brain, as far as like being a police officer, is like hardcore facts, what's happening, like even though you are my friend and I am taking you in, which is nice and good, like all of the other stuff that makes us feel kind of icky about him, I feel like that's just like police brain and how they operate as a product of a police officer's daughter. I can understand like that mindset of being like, I'll try to support you as much as I can, but like factually, I'm looking at all of these things at face value, also as a means to be protecting you and family. So like, yes, all this other stuff is going around, but like, I'm just trying to make sure that you are safe. And whatever that means, it's like they're thinking about that first as opposed to like all the other stuff, all the potential stuff that like this could be happening, whatever.
Yeah.
So all that to say, I think he's trying his best.
Sure.
As a friend.
Jamie, you agree?
Yeah, I think like there could probably be a little bit more compassion and empathy in certain moments, especially when she is like panicking and freaking out. I think that there could be space to be more understanding, even if he's having a hard time believing her, that he can at least like empathize with her in that moment, which I don't think he necessarily does, because I think he's just like, that's what you're saying isn't real, and is more dismissive. But yeah, I don't think that he's like a terrible friend. I just think that there's definitely room to grow.
Sure.
Yeah. For sure.
Oh, and just quickly going back to what was Adrian's plan. I didn't realize I wrote this down. I think that he was going to take everybody away from her, James, Sydney, her sister, so she'd have to come back to him. But he stopped because of the pregnancy worked, like Jamie mentioned. So when she escaped, he went to hurt the others to force her hand even further, something that he may not have pre-planned for. And then finally in the rain, he actually threatens her with the friends. That was the first time that he actually was like, I'm going to kill or hurt everyone around you so that you come back to me, or like we can figure this out with the baby, versus everything just being like actions. And like her having to figure out her own.
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't realize I wrote that down. Very exciting.
Nice. Should we get into brains?
Yes, tasty.
Brains.
All right, let's get into it. First question that I would like, deep dive into the brains, all the guts, is pronounce it. Diazepam, the medicine that she was supposedly on, is that real? And if not,
yes.
What were they trying to say that it is?
Yes, it is real. This is Valium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so what is it supposed to do?
Yes. So diazepam or Valium is an anti-anxiety medication. So it calms down your nervous system, which is why in the beginning you see her with the bottle and checking the water, because she drugged Adrian with this. It makes you sleepy, makes you very sleepy. So like a lot of it might make you fall asleep. But it falls under the category of like anti-anxiety medications, benzodiazepines. Xanax is also
I was going to ask if Xanax
common.
was in that.
Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic.
So if you ever, there was something else that we saw recently, I think, or was it this, where Brian also asked me if that was real. And I think it was also diazepam. But yes, diazepam in movies, I feel like you see that the most without it always being explicitly labeled as Xanax or Valium. And I don't know why they can't use the brand names.
Yeah.
But
my assumption is because it's a brand and they didn't get permission, but like you can use the like technical term.
Right. So diazepam, if you see that in movies, it is a real anti-anxiety medication.
Work. Fantastical. Next question. We haven't done this in a while, but I would love to Billy or Stu Adrian and his brother.
Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative. It's a scream, baby.
Billy or Stu.
where do we think that they fall on this list?
That's smart to include his brother. Also, shout out to the
yeah.
actor who played his brother, because he is in For All Mankind, which is an excellent show, and he was very good in this too.
Nice.
The end. I think that Adrian is the Billy.
Okay.
And I think the brother is the Stu, because I think Adrian is the mastermind, is like plotting all of this stuff out, and then also like abuses his brother, and so he's able to like bring his brother into it too, but I don't think his brother is thinking through all of the like, you know, long-term planning. I think he's just roped into it because he's also under the thumb of his brother. So not really thinking it through. But still a part of it.
And so we talk about like the Billy being the psychopath, right? And the Stu being the sociopath. So my next question is, I think Elizabeth Moss calls Adrian a narcissist sociopath. Do you agree with that then, if we are placing Adrian in the psychopath category?
I mean, I think I still agree, because there's so like the overlap is really similar, and also like from a diagnostic standpoint, like these are like two separate personality disorders, like narcissistic personality disorder and then antisocial personality disorder.
Yes.
But that's not to say that there aren't like characteristics that people can have. So like, I'm not going to necessarily diagnose him, although he probably does have antisocial personality disorder. I think like, again, going into him being this like high level person in the field of optics, like he probably has a huge ego, and like I think part of this too is thinking that he can get away with this. Like the idea of even doing this to begin with, there has to be this level of like your ego is so big that you think that you can successfully go through this whole thing without getting caught. And like that's narcissism. So like just the fact that he like thought up any of the, even we're talking about the plan changing, but like that he had this plan to begin with, that's definitely narcissistic.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And my last question, and we kind of already touched on this, but I would love to get some specifics from you. The best way to support someone who is coming out of an abusive relationship, and we've already talked about the cop friend, but what are some ways do you think that either he could have been more supportive, or in general someone who, if they come to you needing help to get out, like how can they show that support?
I mean, for me, like the number one thing is like remove all judgment. Like there's nothing that will have somebody feel unsafe talking to you about their experience with intimate partner violence faster than if they feel like you're judging them, because it goes back into like, I think a lot of what is internalized about like, oh, like, you know, it's my fault and I'm to blame, and like taking on that like I'm the victim and like, but I did this and I play the role. Like, no, like it's all about power and control. And so like you can help provide like psychoeducation on power and control. And like there are literal diagrams about the cycle of abuse, where it starts out as like sweet and like the honeymoon stage, but then like tension starts to build and it feels like you're walking on eggshells around that person. And then there's like an inciting incident, like some kind of blow up, and then it goes back into like apologizing and the honeymoon stuff where it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, like here, I'll never do that again, and then it just keeps going endlessly. But like it's so complicated that there has to be so much empathy and compassion when talking about this, because again, like if somebody feels like you're judging them, that's part of why the isolation is happening, because it's not just that the abusive partner is removing you from your support system, but also a lot of times, like, you know, what I find is that the family and friends of folks who are experiencing these relationships, like without having this understanding of what this can look like, there is a lot of judgment or like sometimes even blame that is being put on folks who are being victimized in these relationships. And so that's why it's so important to like educate yourself about all of these things that, again, even if it's not physical violence, there are so many other things that are perpetuating violence and abuse in intimate partner relationships. It does not always have to be physically violent for it to be causing harm.
Absolutely.
And knowing that allows you to have more empathy and compassion, which I think helps provide the best type of support. It's just being there and giving people autonomy and the agency to make decisions for themselves, because like it's not easy to walk away. Sometimes folks have to remove themselves from these relationships multiple times before they are ever able to like fully get out. It's really hard. And I know we were talking about the marriage of it all too, whether or not they're married. Like with or without that adds another layer of making it super complicated. If you have kids, that adds a whole nother layer of making it super complicated to leave. It's really, really, really hard to leave. It is not easy. That is like the first myth about intimate partner violence. It is not easy to walk away. So be as open and non-judgmental as you can be so that you're best able to support somebody.
Absolutely. Great answer. Love it. Here for it. So that's all I have for Brains section. Do we want to move on to Rotten Tomatoes?
Let's do Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatin.
Rotten Tomatin.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
Okay, what do you think The Invisible Man has on Rotten Tomatoes? Nikisha, why don't we start with you?
92.
Oh, wow. Jamie?
You took mine.
No way. Twins.
I'm gonna say 97.
But you were both going to say 92?
Yeah.
Because it's 92!
What? Wait, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Knew it in my bones.
So,
The intuition.
yeah, the search...
Got it, baby.
Them bones.
Them
Them
bones. So 92% critics' consensus is smart, well acted, and above all scary. The Invisible Man proves that sometimes the classic source material for a fresh reboot can be hiding in plain sight.
Ooh. Okay.
And it has an audience score of 88%.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great. Totally agree.
Yeah.
All right,
Woohoo.
should we do the 4 S's?
Yeah.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
All right. We are here with the 4 S's, which are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. This is where we will break down skulls, how well it handles mental health and human behavior, 1 through 10. Scares, how scary was it, 1 through 10. And then shakes, how much you're going to shake this movie off, 1 through 10. And then we'll go through our suggestions. But let's start with Jamie. Jamie, what are your 3 of the 4 S's?
Sure. So for skulls, I gave this an 8. Because again, I think this is like a pretty accurate portrayal of somebody who is escaping from an abusive partner. I think it's more about like the people around that bother me more, and maybe it's bothering me because it's probably real and that is upsetting to me. But I do think there are some moments where I'm just like, whoa, why are you thinking this way? It makes me mad. For scares, I'm giving this a 7 because, like I said, this movie made me poop out my heart and just be full on panicking for the entire movie. So deeply uncomfortable. Yay. Even without all of the like jump scary things. Because again, it's like, we know that he's there. When is she going to figure it out? When's everyone else going to figure it out? Like, I hate that I know this. Why can't I help?
Right.
It's very unsettling. For shakes, I also gave this a 7. It's just such a standout film for so many reasons, but like it really the effectiveness of it all really stays with you. Again, I've only watched this film twice now, and I feel good. I don't know if I can watch it again because the degree of anxiety that I get, just comes back immediately. So it is a impactful film.
Cool. Nikisha.
Yeah, Skulls, I'm going to give it an 8. People are peopling for sure. Scares is an 8 because of the tension. And Shakes, I'm going to give it a 10. At first I was going to give it like 8s across the board, but I was like, no, this movie is great. I'm going to give it a 10.
Sure. I am giving this a 9 for Skulls. I'm giving it a 7 for Scares, and I'm giving it a 9 for Shakes. This is a great movie. This is a unforgettable, effective movie. And here's another thing that I will say. I think that this is one of the all-time great horror movie remakes.
Yeah.
I think that like you can easily pair this with the Evil Dead remake, the Dawn of the Dead remake, a lot of those. This is an exceptional example of taking a source material and adapting it to a contemporary lens, while still keeping a lot of the mystery and excitement from the original kind of concept.
Yeah.
That's great. So on that, I'll go into my suggestion because I use that. This is a very different type of movie, but if you love Universal monsters and you want a good Universal monster movie adaptation, The Mummy, baby, Brendan Fraser.
Oh yeah, great.
Yeah.
Oh, that movie's so
I wouldn't consider that reboot a horror movie. Like, to me, that is like an action adventure reboot, a remake.
But it's still like a very solid reboot of the original
Totally
horror icons.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Nice. I'll go. I have a couple. So if you want women escaping abusive relationships, watch Enough with Jennifer Lopez.
I hate that movie.
I love it so much.
Whoa! I didn't know that. Oh my!
Oh my god! I hate it so much.
I watched it so much as a kid. I think it's more nostalgia too, but I just I love it. It's just so crazy. Also, there's a TV show that's wonderful, speaking on emotional abuse and someone not being able to get out of that, and it's called The Maid. It's on Netflix, and
with Margaret Qualley.
I guess that's her name. Yes, I just know her face. I don't know her name.
Sure,
but she was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, she's it's Andy McDowell's daughter.
Yes.
Yes. She was also on
The Maid. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I never got to that, but I hear it's pretty intense.
Very intense,
cool.
but very well acted. And just speaking on just emotional abuse, if you can stomach it, it's a really beautiful TV show. And of course, Rosemary's Baby, and of course, The Lodge, just for like not believing women and then like crazy shit happening. So, also, Jamie.
Yeah, I have two. I realize I can't watch. For me personally, I can't watch IPV in horror anymore, or like any of it. So I really steer clear. But one movie that came to mind when I was thinking about the recommendation was Gerald's Game. Where there are some references. So I'll throw that out there. I also love Carla Gugino. And then for another movie that you're watching and there is like gaslighting happening and a lot of intense anxiety building up that you're like, when's he gonna figure it out? Creep.
Sure.
Nice.
Sure. I haven't seen the sequel. I'd like to watch that.
Same.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, put it on the list.
Yeah. We could do a Creep 1 and Creep 2 episode, like combine the two.
Creep crowd.
We can do like a creepy episode.
A creep out. Grand.
Creep out.
Okay, well, I think that wraps up our episode of The Invisible Man. You can follow us on all the social medias, the TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, @TalkHorrorPod. Not salty about it at all. There's so many social things.
know.
I just can't keep up with the things. But we're on there. Brian is doing all the great things with that at Talk Horror Pod. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
Sure, you can listen to us wherever you get podcasts. So that's things like Spotify and, of course, Apple Podcasts. You can also go on YouTube and watch the podcasts. But rate and review us everywhere possible. 5 stars, please.
Thank you. Woo.
Yeah. I don't know what a good way to end this. It's such a serious...
I wrote a quote down. It's going to be serious, but I think it's an interesting one. He said, the quote was, I forget who said it in the movie, maybe her sister. He needs you, and you don't need him. Nobody has left him before. I thought that was a really great line to explain a lot of what's happening without, like, being too heavy-handed about it. It was just a clean line, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think the brother said that.
Yeah.
Is that the brother said that? Yeah. He's also the brother's also in a great horror movie called Triangle. If you've never seen it, real good.
Separate from Triangle of Sadness.
Separate from Triangle of Sadness, correct.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, we'll leave it at that. Thanks, guys, for listening.
Bye.
Bye. Surprise.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about that. Surprise. Very effective use of that word.
Very.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't even talk about the cell phone in the attic sequence. That was incredible.
Oh yeah, that was so good. It's just so good. Everyone watch
yes.
this film.
And then she drops
Everyone
the
watch
paint
it.
on him like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man,
Great.
So good. We could talk another. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.